The gate arm stayed down. I watched Brenda Holcomb lean out of the guard shack window, tablet in hand, blocking me with a smile that belonged on someone announcing a new rule they'd been waiting years to enforce. New vehicle standards went into effect today, she said. Your truck doesn't meet community aesthetic requirements. You'll need to park on the street. My Ford F-250, the same truck that had passed through this gate 5 days a week for 9 years, the same truck every contractor in Sagebrush Meadows knew by sight, sat idling in neutral. Behind me, 2 sedans waited. I looked past her through the window, past the guard station where Marcus usually sat, toward the roofline of the community center. The same roofline where 68 solar panels set angled south, pulling daylight into kilowatts. The same panels I leased to Sagebrush Meadows HOA under an agreement Brenda had no memory of because she hadn't been on the board when it was signed. I'll park on the street today, I said. We'll sort this out. She nodded like a teacher accepting an apology. I didn't park on the street. I parked 3 blocks north at the county surveyor's office and made 2 phone calls before I even cut the engine. That was Monday. By Friday, Brenda Holcomb would be standing in front of her own darkened house explaining to 68 furious neighbors why their refrigerators had stopped running. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Dietrich. I've run Dietrich Solar Solutions out of a single truck operation since 2006. I do commercial installations, schools, municipal buildings, the occasional private estate with land to spare. In 2015, I made Sagebrush Meadows HOA an offer they couldn't refuse, a 20-year solar lease on unused land adjacent to their community center. I'd install the array at my cost. They'd pay me a fixed monthly rate, $1,800, a fraction of what they were spending on grid power, and I'd maintain everything. The board at the time understood a good deal. The paperwork was signed, notarized, recorded with the county. Section 9, Clause 4. Lessor retains full ownership of all installed equipment and maintains sole access rights to leased parcel for maintenance and emergency purposes. The system went live in February 2016. For 9 years, I'd been the invisible man keeping their lights on. Monthly payment through autodraft. Quarterly maintenance visits. 0 complaints. Then Brenda Holcomb got elected board president. I didn't know her personally. I knew her type. 43 years old. Worked remotely in compliance management. Recently divorced. 3 cars between her and her 2 teenage sons. None of them older than 2 years. She'd moved into Sagebrush Meadows 18 months ago and joined the board 6 months after that. Marcus, the weekday gate guard, told me she'd been lobbying for aesthetic improvements since March. Stricter paint color enforcement. Landscape audits. And now, apparently, vehicle standards. The email came that Monday afternoon. Sent to all residents. Subject line, updated community vehicle guidelines. It was 4 paragraphs of bureaucratic language describing size restrictions, commercial signage prohibitions, and a new approval process for any vehicle exceeding manufacturer curbed weight of 6,500 pounds. My F-250 weighed 7,200. There was a grace period. 30 days to apply for an exemption or find alternative parking. The email was signed by Brenda and copied to the full board. I read it twice. Then I opened my filing cabinet and pulled the green folder labeled Sagebrush Meadows, Solar Lease Agreement. I didn't call Brenda. I called my attorney. Tom Schaefer worked property law from an office that smelled like old books and burned coffee. He listened to my summary without interrupting, asked 3 clarifying questions, and then said the sentence I needed to hear. Your access rights are irrevocable under the lease terms. Any restriction that prevents you from entering the property to perform maintenance or emergency service is a material breach. If they don't fix it, you can suspend service. Legally, not just legally. It's built into Section 12. Failure by lessee to provide unobstructed access constitutes grounds for immediate service suspension. I sat with that for a moment. And if I suspend, you're obligated to provide 72 hours written notice. After that, you flip the breaker. Everything on that array goes dark until they remedy the breach. I thanked him and hung up. That evening I drafted the notice. 1 page. Plain language. Addressed to the Sagebrush Meadows HOA Board of Directors. I cited the vehicle restriction. I cited Section 9, Clause 4. I noted that my truck was the service vehicle for all maintenance on the solar array that currently supplied 100% of the community center's power, 60% of the common area lighting, and the full electrical load for the gate system itself. I requested immediate exemption. I provided 72 hours to respond. I sent it certified mail Tuesday morning. Brenda signed for it Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday came and went. No response. Thursday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Dietrich, this is Brenda Holcomb. I received your letter. I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish, but the board's vehicle policy applies to everyone, even contractors. You're not a contractor. You're a vendor. I'm the vendor who owns the solar array. Silence. We'll discuss it at the next board meeting, she said. When's that? 2 weeks. My notice expires tomorrow at 5 p.m. She hung up. Friday morning I parked at the gate and watched Brenda come out of the guardhouse personally, tablet under her arm like a shield. The gate stayed down. Aaron, this is getting ridiculous, she said. You can't hold the community hostage over a parking rule. I'm not holding anyone hostage. I'm enforcing the lease you signed when you took my payment this month. We didn't sign anything. That was the old board. Doesn't matter. The lease runs through 2036. Section 9 guarantees my access. Your new rule blocks my access. That's breach. She crossed her arms. You're not driving that truck through this gate. I looked at my watch. It was 9:47 a.m. Notice expires at 5. You've got 7 hours. I drove to the county surveyor's office, printed 3 copies of the lease, and dropped one at Tom Schaefer's office with a post-it. It's happening. At 4:30 p.m., I called Brenda's cell. This is your final courtesy call. If I don't have written exemption by 5, I'm suspending service under Section 12. You're bluffing. Try me. She hung up. At 5:02 p.m., I pulled into the maintenance access road that ran along the north edge of the property, the one that didn't go through the main gate, the one covered under my lease access rights. I unlocked the chain link gate with the key the old board had given me and drove up to the solar array. The inverter panel was mounted on a weatherproof pedestal next to the community center. I opened it with my master key, photographed the settings screen showing full operational status, and flipped the main breaker off. The hum stopped. The status lights went dark. I took another photo, locked the panel, and drove out the way I'd come. I was home by 6:15. I poured a bourbon and waited. The first email arrived at 6:52 p.m., sent to the HOA's community list served by a resident named Angela Portman. Subject, power outage. Is anyone else's community center access dark? The gate system just switched to backup battery. 11 replies in the first 20 minutes. Yes, same here. Lights out on the walking path. Main pole pump stopped. The gate's running on reserve. At 7:30, Brenda sent a mass email. We are aware of a power issue affecting common areas. Maintenance is investigating. Updates to follow. Maintenance was not investigating. Maintenance was me. Tom called at 8 o'clock. I just got a very angry voicemail from someone named Holcomb. She says you sabotaged HOA infrastructure. I suspended contracted service after documented breach. That's not sabotage. That's contract enforcement. I know. I'm just telling you she's mad. How mad? She used the word lawsuit 4 times in 90 seconds. I finished my bourbon. Let her try. Saturday morning the community center remained dark. The pool was closed. The walking path lights hadn't come on overnight. The main gate was running on backup battery with an estimated 12 hours remaining before it defaulted to manual operation. By noon, the HOA board had scheduled an emergency session for 2 p.m. at a board member's house. Brenda did not invite me. Eleanor Voss, the board treasurer and the only member who'd been on the board when the lease was signed, called me at 1:15. Aaron, this is Eleanor. I need you to know that I've reviewed the lease and you're completely within your rights. Brenda didn't consult any of us before implementing that vehicle policy. I'm bringing printed copies to the meeting. Will it matter? I'm going to make it matter. Can you be available by phone at 2:30? I'll be available. The call came at 2:41. Eleanor on speaker. 5 voices in the background. Aaron, we have the full board here. I've walked everyone through the lease. Brenda has something to say. A pause. Then Brenda's voice, tight and clipped. We're prepared to issue an exemption for your vehicle. Effective immediately. In writing. Yes. Sent to my attorney and recorded with the HOA minutes. Another pause. Yes. Then I'll restore service within the hour. I heard something that might have been a sharp exhale. Then Eleanor came back on. Thank you, Aaron. I'll send the exemption letter within 30 minutes. The email arrived at 3:04. Signed by all 5 board members. My truck was granted permanent exemption from vehicle size restrictions under the classification of essential service vehicle. I drove back to the array at 3:30, photographed the inverter panel in its offline state, flipped the main breaker back to on, and watched the status lights come up green. The hum returned. By 4 o'clock, the community center lights were back. The pool pump restarted. The walking path illuminated for the evening. I locked the panel and drove home. Angela Portman posted to the listserv at 6:22. How's back? Does anyone know what actually happened? Nobody from the board replied. Sunday morning, I drove through the main gate without slowing. The arm lifted automatically. Marcus was back in the guardhouse. He gave me a small wave that might have been a salute. I didn't see Brenda for 3 weeks. Then she appeared at my truck one afternoon while I was running a routine inverter diagnostic. She stood 10 feet back, hands in her jacket pockets. I need to understand something, she said. I didn't look up from the multimeter. Go ahead. Why didn't you just tell me you own the solar? I did. In the notice I sent Tuesday. You signed for it. I didn't read it carefully. That's not my problem. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you could have just asked for an exemption. I set the multimeter down and looked at her. I did. In the notice, you had 72 hours. You told me the policy applied to everyone. I thought you were being difficult. I was enforcing a contract. She stared at the inverter panel like it had personally betrayed her. You embarrassed me in front of the whole board. You embarrassed herself. I just turned off the power. She left without another word. Eleanor called me the following week. Brenda's stepping down at the end of her term. She's not running again. Because of this? Because of a lot of things. This was just the loudest. The next board election happened in November. Eleanor ran for president. She won. Her first meeting agenda included a full review of all vendor contracts, specifically to ensure board members understood what the HOA actually owned versus what it leased. She sent me the meeting minutes afterward with a handwritten note. Lesson learned. Thank you for the reminder. I framed the solar lease and hung it in my office, right next to my contractor's license. Not because I'm proud of what happened, though I won't pretend I'm not, but because it's a better reminder than any motivational poster. People forget what they've agreed to. They forget what they depend on. And when someone with a title and a tablet decides the rules apply to everyone, they never imagine the person they're blocking might be the person keeping the lights on. I still service the Sagebrush Meadows array. Monthly payment still clears on the 1st. I still drive my F-250 through the main gate 5 days a week. And every time I pass the guardhouse, I glance up at the solar panels on the community center roof. 68 panels. 20-year lease. Section 9, Clause 4. The system runs quietly. So do I. But when the gate arm comes down without cause, I know exactly where the breaker is. And I know exactly what happens when someone forgets that infrastructure isn't a courtesy, it's a contract. Brenda Holcomb learned that the hard way. The neighborhood learned it in the dark.